And I think that was around, long working hours, bad habits, a bit too much drinking. And, particularly when you're around work and in hospitality, it's really hard. You're watching people drink and enjoy themselves 6 days a week. You feel that you deserve a bit of that, afterwards and have a few drinks yourself. So I was certainly alcohol dependent, and I certainly used it to kind of relieve some of, or what I thought was relieving the pressure on me.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Burnt Chef Journal, a hospitality-focused podcast dedicated to smashing the stigma of mental health and inspiring people to create change within their lives and organisations for a happier and healthier hospitality profession. 2021 was the year that we really established the Burnt Chef project. We managed to launch 48 podcast episodes on the Burnt Chef Journal with over 50,000 downloads. But we also managed to facilitate 1,500 plus conversations with people who needed support with their mental health and reached over 122 countries worldwide with merchandise, training, and these podcasts. So just wanted to start the year with a very quick thank you for supporting us over the last 12 months and a quick welcome to anyone who may be listening to this for the first time. It's going to be a fantastic year. We're looking at really stepping up our game in terms of the support that we're able to provide, the training options, and setting up some new innovative projects as well to help with that. So do stick with us. If you have any guests or anyone that you want to see on this year's podcast, please do let me know via email, marketing@theburntchefproject.com. Do get in touch, let us know. We're going to be looking at doing potentially 1 to 2 episodes per month, just so that we're able to focus on our other projects at the same time. So send them over, we'll get them recorded, and we'll deliver them to you right here on the Burnt Chef Journal. Right then, let's crack on with this week's episode. Simon Maguire joins us from Southampton. He's the managing director of a hotel group, and he talks to us about his experiences within hospitality, how he started off as housekeeping and worked his way up the chain, or through the chain, if you like to call it that, to managing director of a large hotel group. So he talks about his experiences with mental illness and what he does to keep mentally fit and healthy. So I hope you enjoy this first episode for the year, and let's crack on. I was very pleased that Dan introduced us, and I'm always very keen to learn more about other people's experiences within hospitality, your background, where you come from, what brought you into hospitality and your sort of career to date, and then also about your relationship with the subject of mental health and mental illness and some of the other bits that you sort of sent across to me, really. So yeah, I don't know where you want to begin. Like, Simon, how did you get into hospitality in the first place? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, so I don't think I had a desire as a kid to get into hospitality. I think I had, lots of weird and wacky ideas, but I don't think hospitality really ever came into it. And I was about 16 at the time, and I got a weekend job and a summer holiday job working at a hotel that's now, I think, part of Alexander Hotels, called Barnet Hill. But back then it was a conference centre. And I was working in housekeeping, cleaning rooms on a Saturday and Sunday, and I just loved it. Like, first day, just really, really enjoyed it. And I was like, you know what, this is actually pretty good fun. And I did that for the first summer. And I went back at Christmas, which I guess was a good sign. And, did weekends. I lived about 15 minutes up the road, so it worked really well. And then they promoted me to the grand heights of conference tidier upper, let's call it. And whenever their conferences were finished, I would go around cleaning up the conferences. And I enjoyed that. And I started to get a bit of interaction with guests, and I thought, actually, this is really rewarding. And there's a team element to this, and you're working as a team and you've all got to play your part, and at the end of it the customer will be satisfied and happy, and there's some instant gratification and reward from that. And so I then went to university and studied absolutely nothing to do with hospitality. Studied sociology, and didn't make a great crack of that, but got through. And it was coming to this sort of end of third year. I'd carried on doing the role, and people were starting to ask me the question, well, what are you going to do? And I thought, you know what, I think I really like this hospitality malarkey. Why don't I try and apply for a few hospitality roles, but try and take myself a little bit more seriously and see what I can get. So I managed to get a graduate training scheme with a hotel group called Ferndale. And so they've got 9 hotels in London, a couple in New York. But at the time, they were quite small. They had 4 hotels, the Charlotte Street, the Covent Garden, the Pelham, and one other, which I can't remember off the top of my head now. But and they were an upcoming boutique hotel chain. And I think this was their sort of first year of graduates. And there was about 20 of us on this selection day. And I thought, all of these other great candidates there. And I thought, I haven't really prepared for this, and I haven't really got a Scooby-Doo. So it was a nice experience. But then the next day I got a call saying that I was one of the 4. And so I went to work for this upmarket boutique hotel chain as a graduate trainee, and I started in food and beverage, and I just loved it. Just immediately, absolutely loved it, and the time flew. It wasn't about doing an 8-hour shift, and the time just literally flew. And every day I was there, working till late in the evening or starting early in the morning, and I just, 6 days, 7 days, I just whatever it was, I loved it.
What was it that you think that really sort of tickled you at that moment in time, that put you in that almost that flow state?
Yeah, I think it was definitely twofold. It was, one was working with a team of people, and I think that just to achieve something, I think working with a team. And I've got a really short attention span. Anyone who does a meeting with me will tell you that, come an hour and a half, don't bother talking to him about something because he'll be gone. And actually, hospitality is sort of broken down into lots of little chunks and lots of little activities. And so it just worked. It worked well for me in that sense. Always kept my mind going and engaged and kept me busy, and the time flew by. And the second thing was the customer. I just, and I get caught up into it in these days when I'm in the hotels, just going and chatting to customers and finding out a bit about them. I guess it's that, it's almost being a bit nosy, maybe, just wanting to know. And I was particularly working for Ferndale. You got to meet some really interesting characters. I got to meet Ben Stiller, and I can't remember her name now. She was married to Kurt Cobain. Was not Jennifer Love Hewitt, for God's sake, Courtney Love. Courtney Love, thank you. Yeah, met her, and and just had and the Foo Fighters and Sachin Tendulkar, the Indian cricketer, and all these people, and this was like happening on a daily basis. So I was just sort of thriving on it, really. So I worked for Ferndale for quite a few years, progressed through the graduate program, became a night manager, reception manager, front of house manager, and went on to be a deputy general manager for them. So I must have worked for them for about 6 years, and they were expanding at the time. I worked on the opening of the Soho Hotel, which was just a brilliant experience. And they were, they looked after, we worked hard, but they really looked after us, with training, with, you always felt the next step was just around the corner, and that was exciting. And they were innovative, and they were led by a lady called Carrie Wicks at the time, and she was brilliant and very inspirational. and in HR they had a guy called Mike Williams who was brilliant as well. So it was a really exciting part of the journey with them. I kind of got it at the sweet spot. And but being quite an ambitious guy, I was offered a role as general manager of a hotel in Jersey called the Atlantic Hotel, and it was a bit of a weird situation. I went over for the interview. In the hotel was shut. It was in the middle of January. The hotel closes every year, and I went over for this interview, and the whole of Jersey was like dead, was just empty. And so I thought, this could be a bit of an easy life, actually. All these beautiful beaches and all of that. Little did I know that in the summer it just goes absolutely bonkers. But that was good, and I worked there for 2 years, and I just got married. I was really into my food, like really into the sort of food and wine scene, and there was a Michelin star chef at the hotel, a guy called Mark Jordan. He now runs another restaurant in Jersey, which is excellent, and got on really well with him. And I learned a lot. I learned so much about food, and the produce in Jersey is second to none. And we had a great sommelier there, Sergio, and he taught me all about wine, and I got pretty excited about that and really learned. But we had our son out in Jersey, and it was just a bit isolated from the family. So having kind of started to enjoy my wine and food, I looked for a brand that I thought might fit back in the UK or back in England, should I say. And up came Hotel de Van. And my previous boss or previous colleague from Ferndale, Mike Williams in HR, had joined the HR team for Hotel de Van, and he gave me a call and said, look, would you be interested? And I went over, had a quick chat, and I was, in the job, and it was great, good food, good wine, and that team atmosphere again, and a brand that was at that time doing really, really well. And I was lucky enough. I started in Tunbridge Wells, went on to Brighton, which was their flagship, and then got a regional role with them, and did that work with them for about 5 years. And then moved on to Harbour Hotels as Group Operations Director. And that was interesting because they were expanding like crazy.
Yeah.
I started, we had 5 hotels, and I left 3.5 years later and we had 15. So that was pretty bonkers, but lots of learning. And then I went on to this role, which is MD of LFH. And, we're on a really exciting journey as well. We're working with some new owners over the last 3 years, and we're, building bedrooms and refurbishing and all that glory that comes with that. And so I just, when I think about my career in hospitality, I just think about, when people ask me, is it a good job to get in? And so many people, by the way, told me, don't do it. Even my own dad told me, don't do it. But it's so varied, and it's just exciting every day, So, that was a bit about me.
I love that. No, I think it's funny that you should mention that people tell you not to get involved in hospitality. And what are some of the things that even your own father was telling you about the reasons why this wasn't a career choice?
Yeah, long hours, low pay, and I think the other thing, weekends. So those were kind of the stay clear points. But weirdly, between Ferndale and was it between? Can't remember now. But I did take a little stint out. It wasn't really quite outside of hospitality, but it was working for a hospitality firm, Compass, and it was kind of a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday job. And literally the days just went so slow, and I hated it. I lasted like 6 weeks, and I was like, this is just so boring and mundane. How can anyone do this? Sorry. So I guess, those maybe the people warning me off were just playing to a stereotype of what people say. And, if you do love hospitality, you love hospitality, don't you? And it's an addictive industry.
It is addictive. Yeah, there's a certain. I think you have to be a certain type of person to love this industry, and one that thrives off of the adrenaline and the social aspect of it, and the lifestyle and everything that goes with it. It's incredibly fast paced, incredibly alluring. You get to meet an amazing bunch of diverse and creative individuals in this industry, with such a range of personalities and interests. It really is one of the best professions I find that I've ever been in. I mean, I've worked in multiple sectors, different industries during my sort of working career. So, yeah, but we're often dissuaded by our teachers or our college lecturers or our parents from joining this industry, be it they've had limited to no experience in this area, or they've had one bad experience. But I think ultimately, if you're happy and you enjoy the work, then what should it matter if you're doing weekends or if you're working out of normal office hours? Like as you said, for you it works beautifully.
Yeah, and it can work in your favour. Your days off, you're not involved in queues going to places, and you're not having to plan your life too much in advance, because you can just turn up to any old restaurant at any old time and you don't have to make a booking on a Monday lunchtime. So it can have its pluses, that's for sure.
Yeah, amazing. And I love, thank you for sharing your journey as well, because it does, we do get a lot of college students listen to this, and often enough they think, well, I either have to become a chef and go to a high-end restaurant in London, or I have to become a sommelier and stay here. But actually, you've shown that there's a wide range of roles out there, and just because you might choose one role doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to transition and move through hospitality, because there is such a diverse amount of roles available as well, aren't they?
Yeah, and I've been quite lucky in the sense that even in my current team, there's a couple of people that just recently have really transitioned from one role to the other. One was a lady who works for us, and she was fully events based. She's always been sort of booking events and all of that, and she's transitioned into general management and become a general manager, and she's just excelled at it. And it was just, it's those characteristics that really kind of shone through. And then another young lady who I worked with years ago now as a receptionist at Hotel Divan, and she's done various front of house manager roles, deputy roles, and she's now transitioned to our group training manager, and with no previous training experience. And I think when we first discussed the role, she thought I was bonkers. But the point was, she was so good at training people in her teams that she learned those skills over time. And now she's doing it and, training 450 people on a yearly basis. And so there's definitely opportunity if you keep an open mind and keep an open mind and be willing to try new things. And there's definitely opportunity to move across. I've seen many chefs, move into front of house or operational roles, vice versa. Guys on the floor moving into the kitchen. So, you don't necessarily, when you get into it, have to know what you want to do.
Yeah. Oh, and I think COVID's also helped with that a little bit as well, because you've seen people who are job sharing, We've seen front of house staff plating up desserts in the kitchen and doing garnish and things like that. And actually finding that they've got either a natural flair for it, or they've got a bit of passion for it, and they want to take it on as a sort of part-time or even transfer their skills into that role. So, whilst COVID has had a lot of negatives, there are also a lot of positives with regards to that. And like you say, with regards to your training manager now, I spoke to one business owner recently who had started to identify skills that weren't necessarily hospitality specific with their team and utilizing them and bringing them on board. So one chap had a marketing and a digital marketing degree, but he'd been working for this company for 3 years as front of house and general manager. And they got talking. He was like, "Oh yeah, during my degree in this," and they were like, what? We spend like £600 a month on a company who does this for us, and they don't get us. You get us. You're an embodiment of us, and also you've got some absolutely amazing skill sets that we can use. And all of a sudden, then you've got an individual who has already enjoyed working for you, but is probably going to retain them, and they're going to be a lot happier and more fulfilled during their career.
And engaged, and already know the brand, and already have all the connections. And so they can kind of, when you're bringing in someone new, there's, a month or 6 weeks or whatever of finding their feet. When you do something like that, they can hit the ground running. So definitely a good industry.
Yeah, 100%. And, obviously we're here to talk about the subject of health and well-being and not just the positives of the industry, but things that are, perhaps quite challenging to discuss. And, one of the things I want to bring up with you is essentially the stigma is attached with the subject of mental health and well-being, and why we see such an increased ratio of people who are experiencing chronic stress and mental illness in this industry when compared to others. I just want to sort of gather first and foremost your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So, I've how long have I been doing this then? So 26 years, 25 years. And I haven't seen it all, because you've never seen it all, but I think I've seen a fair amount. And, particularly over the last, 2 years, as you say, these things have been brought into really sharp focus. And I think about the amount of people that have left the industry because of, reasons of burnout or stress or, not being able to cope, and fully justifiably on many of those occasions. And I think it's only come into sharp focus now because there isn't this kind of conveyor belt of people available to us that perhaps there was in the past. And, it's great to see wages increasing. It's great to see all of that. But, it would have been great if this was a talking point, I suppose, or a sharper talking point pre-COVID. And I think, my experience probably mirrors a lot of people. And, I've had moments where I've thought, maybe this is getting too much. I've always loved it. Don't get me wrong. But, when I talked about that expansion period at Harbour Hotels, going from 4 hotels to 15 quite rapidly. And, that hugely took its toll on my body and my mind. And, it's no secret. I think it's sort of on my LinkedIn and that sort of stuff. But, I put on quite a lot of weight. And I think that was around, long working hours, bad habits, a bit too much drinking. And, particularly when you're around work and in hospitality, it's really hard. You're watching people drink and enjoy themselves 6 days a week. You feel that you deserve a bit of that, afterwards and have a few drinks yourself. So I was certainly alcohol dependent, and I certainly used it to kind of relieve some of, or what I thought was relieving the pressure on me. And, with the weight, I got a bad back, as you do, and you're running around a hotel as general manager. We were opening one in Southampton, and it was really long days, I remember, and my back was killing me. And I thought, right, bit of painkillers here will do the job. And I started taking a painkiller called Solpadeine, which has got codeine in it. And, very quickly I was like, okay, this is working on a couple of fronts here, because one, it's relieving stress, and two, it's relieving my back pain. And, and before I knew it, I was, taking it way too much, 7 days a week, over the prescribed dose as it was, and moving up the levels of strength. I remember there was only one Boots near the hotel, and so this lady, I saw her on a few too many occasions, so I ended up sending a colleague to get some for me. And he said, you've probably got a problem. His name's Gary, and thanks, Gary, for those wise words. And he was right, and it's very easy. It's just very easy. It's just like little building block after building block. It just gets a little bit worse, and then all of a sudden, 6 months later, you're staring down the hole of a big problem, one that you don't really want to talk to anyone about, and one that you are embarrassed about and ashamed of. And that's really difficult. And everyone, at the time I was, running this 5-star hotel in Southampton, from the outside, it probably looked absolutely rosy. I just won the company award, the chairman's award for, best employee. I'd won we'd just been awarded 5-star status, the quickest hotel in the UK ever to get 5 stars. So, from the outside, it probably looked, wow, this guy's really going somewhere. But inside, the picture wasn't as rosy. And I just think it's always important, and I think about it, when I'm going around the hotels and talking to people, is when you ask someone how they are, listen to how they say it. They're always going to tell you they're okay. They're always going to tell you they're okay, but listen to how they say it. And so often what you can kind of pick up on a bit of an emotion in the way they say things. And, when you then dig a tiny bit deeper, sensitively, all of a sudden it can all spill out. And, I've sat there on many occasions as people have kind of opened up and broken down. And there isn't always something you can do. There isn't always something you can do about it. But being there for them and letting them speak and letting them talk is a massive relief. And that's probably how I got out of my situation, was that I started to talk about it. I talked to my wife about it. I talked to my dad about it. All a bit difficult at first. I remember, because my wife butts in on everything I say. Hopefully she won't listen to this, but she really does butt into, doesn't always let me finish my sentences. So I had to write her an email to kind of get it off my chest, because I knew if I tried to tell her that I was badly addicted to painkillers, that I'd probably start crying before I got to the sentence. I then might be slightly distracted. So I put it all down in an email, and I've still got the email. And I kind of look back on it and say, actually that was a pretty good thing to do. That was a pretty sensible move. But I was ready to leave, in that email, I was ready to leave hospitality. I in my mind, it had run its course. So, you just never know what people are going through.
No, and thank you for sharing that, because whilst we, perhaps when you get used to talking about it, it becomes slightly easier, but it's still challenging. It requires a certain level of vulnerability and to be able to do so, and also empathy if you're asking people to share with yourself as well, which are, again, vulnerable positions. So thank you for that. I guess from my perspective, I resonate with that in a number of different ways. Obviously, I've spoken a lot about my own personal experiences with mental health and mental illness. And, I've never really, I guess, talked about, high levels of debt, etc., that I was in when I was in my younger years. And when you talk about, how you gradually fall into these patterns and these ways of operating, you never really think about how that comes about. And I was just thinking back now to like my spending habits and how frivolous I used to be and how impatient and impulsive I used to be. And you start borrowing money from the bank and it's £500 an hour, and then you go out on a bender with your mates and that's another £500 because you pay for everyone. And all of a sudden it's like £5,000. You're like, well, I'm already in over my head, so I might as well make it £10,000. And then you start going on and going forward. And I guess it's, again, you don't really know how deep it is until you are in deep, and then you feel so shamed and so embarrassed by it that you can't then ask for help. So, I mean,
if you do, and I think if you do ask for help, particularly if you ask your employer for help, and I didn't go down that route because I felt that would make me a problem employee, or that would be make me someone, can we really trust him? Can we really, and the truth is, if someone's opening up and being honest about that, you can probably trust them more than anyone else. But we're so afraid, aren't we, to just be honest sometimes.
Yes, the fear of, I don't know, is the fear of either what we've made it up to be in our head, or, I guess intrinsically we know that it's, I don't know, we've got ourselves in that pickle. Perhaps it's a pride thing, it's an ego thing, but it's one that we struggle with in hospitality, I feel. But I mean, Gary, shouts out to Gary for being able to call a spade and call it out. But I mean, before that point, had you made any attempts to sort of ask for help, even if it was when someone was asking you if you're okay and you responded in like a, yeah, I'm all right type thing? Had you consciously made any effort before then?
No, I don't think I had. I think, in hospitality, we become pretty good actors. I think, we're kind of on stage a lot of the time, and we're performing. And yeah, I guess wanting to continue my career aspirations, I thought that if I showed weakness, that it could be detrimental to that, and so I kept it pretty private, and really, I suppose, reaching out to my wife and to my and then to my dad was really my first attempt to share it and talk about it, and they were great about it, and but I remember when I hit send on that email, I felt this almost instant relief. I felt this instant relief, and I remember texting my wife saying, "Read your email," because I felt like it was off my chest. It was like, this secret is off my chest, and so that felt good. And I'd encourage anyone who's kind of bottling something up, even if it's phoning someone, if you don't feel you can talk to someone in your family because you don't feel that's the right thing, if you haven't got a friend outside of work that you want to share that with, get on the phone to Hospitality Action, or get on the phone, to some support that maybe not someone and the first step is, I think, just to get it off your chest. And from that, I was able to kind of rebuild and rethink. And I was a big lad. I was, at the time, I would have been sort of 21 stone. So there was a lot of change that needed to happen, and I'd got myself into a kind of bad place, bad space, and there was a lot of change that needed to happen. But those first steps were just massively important.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. And we often talk about things like journaling as an option as well, although that might not necessarily be telling someone. Again, there's quite a cathartic nature of writing things down and even popping it away in a private drawer. And you're right. People like Hospitality Action, the Drinks Trust, Licensed Trade Charity, all of these guys are able to offer financial support if people are struggling. Along with EAP schemes, and we've got the Burnt Chef Support Service as well, which is available day and night for text-based support as well. So there's people that can be turned to in this country. But if you're outside of this country, we've got a lot of listeners from all over the world: America, Canada, South Africa, Australia. There are support services in those areas as well, and sometimes all it takes is a quick text to those support services, and for someone to respond saying, "I hear you, I'm here," that can start you on that journey, really.
Yeah, and then it can be just that spark or that moment, and you can start a new cycle, a new positive cycle, or whatever it can be, and that's what happened to me, and I'm really, really lucky.
So I'm looking at you, Simon, because I've got the benefit of being able to see you on camera, and you tell me that you're a gentleman who used to weigh 21 stone, but I can quite clearly see that that's not the case anymore. So, some drastic changes were put in place. After you sort of spoke to people and started to find your voice with regards to this, and what were your first steps in terms of addressing it? Like, how did you deal with this?
Yeah, so I sent that email. I spoke to my wife, and we kind of talked it through really, and then I spoke to my dad, and we kind of put around the options. Do I need to go out and get some help, or is it something that I feel I could try and tackle myself? With them kind of checking in on me and that sort of thing. And at first, I think we felt that the route that I was going to go down was try and address this myself and see how that went. But that's not always the option, and either option I respect. And what started with me is I thought, one thing that's always made me feel good ever since I was a young kid, that's always made me feel alive and rejuvenated, was exercise. I played a lot of rugby when I was a kid. I played football, cricket, and always loved it. And so I thought to myself, right, if I'm going to, lose one thing, which is going to be the booze and the painkillers, I need to try and replace that in my life, not just by sitting there and kind of white knuckling it out. I need to do something else. So that with the kind of stress thing led me to boxing. And there was a boxing gym, the tattiest, scruffiest boxing gym, I think, in the whole of Southampton. No offence to the guys that run it. They've moved location now and it's much better. But it was basically in a garage. And I ended up just going six days a week, every morning, and just letting rip all of my kind of stress and tension, and it worked brilliantly. The first day I went in, I was useless, couldn't last punching for 30 seconds. And they had a treadmill in there, and they were like, right, you have to run on there. And I couldn't even run. I had to walk uphill the first few weeks. I was too big to run. And slowly but surely got into a rhythm, got into a routine with it. And it really just helped me. First of all, the sessions were so hard that it made me stop drinking the night before, because I just couldn't face the gym, face the boxing, having had a few drinks.
Yeah.
Because it already made you sick at times, just doing the training. But I was still drinking on a Saturday night for quite some time, and kind of weekends. But the painkiller thing kind of stopped pretty much immediately. And again, just talking about that with someone kind of got it off my chest and made me realise that it wasn't a sensible move. But again, I know it's not that easy for some. Mm. And I was enjoying the boxing. I started to do some running. And then when lockdown hit now 2 years ago, so I'd lost about 3 stone through the boxing. And then when COVID hit, I thought, right, I've got 2 choices here. There's no more boxing because the gym shut down. So I'm going to have to pivot here. And I decided to join a triathlon club, because I had I knew I could get an electric bike at home and I could run. Swimming was kind of a bit out for the count, but so I joined that, and that just really helped me. And through the lockdowns and everything, I carried on doing that. And yeah, I got to the stage where I've now lost 6 stone. And I've been alcohol free for a year this Friday, I think it is. Yeah. My 40th birthday was my last session, if you like. And I'll turn 41 on Friday. So, and just things are in a much better place. And, I suppose one thing I'm really proud of is, the whole COVID situation for the business and for all the people that worked in the business, has been a massive situation for all of us, life-changing situation for all of us. And what the exercise has allowed me to do is kind of stay very focused. It kind of gives me my way of letting off my steam, and then during the day I can really focus on work and give that 100%. And I'm just generally in a better place, sleeping more. A bit boring now. My wife tells me I go to bed at like 9:30. And yeah, I don't think I'm the most exciting person to live with. But yeah, and hopefully in 2 months today exactly, I'm going to complete my first Ironman. So in memory of my mum who died when I was young. So training's pretty tough for that. But yeah, so that's kind of, it's not quite 3 years yet, but I'm coming to sort of 3 years since I started that journey.
That's amazing. And what progressed, like what an amazing change as well in terms of just your outlook and your health, your positivity, everything. It's
gratitude is the biggest thing that I've kind of learned. And I think before I was very, very me focused. So, even in work and things is, what does that action mean for me? What does that person coming into the business mean for me? I'm jealous of that. He's doing better than me. She's doing this better than me. It was all it was about the Simon Maguire, and everything was how it kind of impacted me. It was a very selfish way of being. And I think one thing I've learned by, whether it's through running, whether it's through swimming or cycling and all of those sorts of things, and the enjoyment of all of that, and getting rid of the need for alcohol and all those things, has given me a much bigger sense of gratitude. And I'm really, on a Sunday night, I used to dread Sunday nights like something chronic, or whatever. If it was a Wednesday, if it was, I was going back to work on the Thursday, basically that Sunday night feeling I used to dread. And now, like, I still get it a tiny bit, but nothing like I used to. Like, I really kind of get excited about going into work, and it's not just about growing the company and the the business elements of it. Of course, that's exciting, but what I really love seeing now is some of the people that we have in our business, seeing how they're growing, seeing what they're doing, and I really hope once I get this Ironman kind of boxed off and out the way, I really hope that I can do something. What you've done is absolutely brilliant. You've taken a problem that you had, and you've said, I'm not just going to help myself. I'm going to take this problem and I'm going to help other people. And I think the more people we've got like that in this hospitality industry, the more chance we've got of kind of making it a great place to work.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot of value in doing things that don't necessarily produce financial reward or personal gratification, because I think as a culture and society, we're always chasing that easy high, that dopamine kick that gives you that, oh yeah, you know what, that was worth it, and I feel good for a moment. But it's funny how quickly it dissipates, and then it leaves you wanting more and chasing it harder.
Yeah.
But what no one tells you is actually doing nice things for nice people makes you feel good long term.
It has a longer lasting effect.
Yeah, it's completely sustained.
Yeah.
So, and it's interesting to hear about your journey to do with the Ironman. What's involved in an Ironman? Because the thought of one terrifies me.
Yeah. So it's a 3.6 kilometer swim, followed by 180 kilometers on the bike, followed by a full marathon, all in one day.
Wow.
Yeah. Sometimes when I say it like that, it does hurt. But break it down into chunks. And, I think you said this word right at the beginning of this conversation. which is resilience. And, if there's one thing hospitality has taught me in the last couple of years, it's resilience. And I have seen just the most amazing examples of companies, bouncing back onto their feet, finding different ways of doing things. You look at the guys at Coat, doing that delivery to home thing, just pivoting on that. There's just some brilliant examples in our industry of people pivoting and being resilient and not just kind of going, well, this is terrible. It's all COVID's fault, so it's an easy excuse. I can just give up. People have just been incredibly resilient, and that's all the Iron Man is. It's a kind of manifestation of that resilience of being able to get through that day no matter what. And I've done a couple of half ones. They took me about 7 hours, which is just that distance in half, obviously. And you know what? They're tough, but you find out a lot about yourself, and things go wrong and you feel like crap at times, but you find out a lot about yourself. Yeah.
I couldn't. So I swim, and I once used to run, but like 5K was about my limit. And the thought of doing even half an Ironman sounds impossible, but evidently it's not, because there's whole events around it.
Yeah, and I think, Chris, I'm gonna have to tell you off here, but don't put barriers on yourself.
Yeah.
I suppose if I was talking back to my 21 stone self and someone was saying, hey, you're going to do an Ironman, I'd have probably laughed pretty hard. But I've kind of learned through the process that barriers that you put on yourself are quite dangerous from a work perspective. And, in so many ways, we like to kind of put barriers on ourselves as a safety net. And, I'm thinking of getting this done and then doing something even harder. So, let's see.
Well, something interesting that I read about the SAS, and they were saying that the reason why they push recruits during the SAS sign-up process so hard is that the brain has a very good way of limiting your potential. And so what it will do when you're about 40 to 50%, I believe, and this is going from memory, 40 to 50% tired, the brain goes, God, if I keep this up, I'm not going to make it. So self-preservation kicks in, and then you start getting those thoughts going, you can't do this. You're not able to do this. You're not able to go further or faster or whatever the case may be. And so your brain gives up long before your body does. And so what they do during the SAS process is they push you past that point. They're the ones who are going, shut up, brain. We're in control here. And then they show you that actually you can start to break down those barriers and that you're capable of a lot more than your brain gives you credit for. But it's just it's a self-protection mechanism. Yeah,
and I can give just a really anecdotal version of that, which is on Sunday, like as you come up to the main event, if you like, you have to go on these longer and longer rides. And on Sunday I had to do 5 hours, and it was 5 hours on my own, 120 kilometers or whatever. And an hour and a half in, it was freezing cold. And I was just like, I can't do this. Just cannot do this. I do not want to be here. I don't want to be doing this. This was a stupid idea in the first place. Just go home, Simon. My wife and children were at like a party. I thought you could go home, you could order a pizza in, you could sit in front of the fire and stick some telly on. And I was fighting, just everything in my head was just telling me to give up. And I got through that kind of 15 minutes of, that's all it was, 15 minutes of real kind of mind sort of bending stuff. And once I got through that the next 3 hours, I was totally fine. I was just like, actually, this isn't too bad. But your mind it's just so clever. It's so powerful. Both ways, it's so powerful at telling you to do something, but it's also so powerful. You once, you can resist it, and then you can push it further. And I think that's what's given the gratitude side of things, is seeing that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's small things like, if you're experiencing mental illness currently, or you don't know where to begin, just start with baby steps.
Yeah.
Because small things to someone else might seem like massive hurdles to you. Even something like brushing your teeth, or going for a 5-minute walk outside in the fresh air. These things may seem insurmountable, but don't compare yourself to other people.
No.
And if you're making progress, more progress than yesterday. There was a really good quote I heard last week by Hemingway, and I can't remember what on earth it was, but it's perfect for this podcast. Oh God, what is it?
But you know what? It's so true about the walking thing, and just going, particularly when I started trying to not drink, just going for a walk for 10 or when I had the urge or whatever, just going for a walk for 10 or 15 minutes. I don't know what it is about walking. I don't know what it is about particularly walking in a forest or just getting outside and getting the fresh air. But if you can do that for 10, 15 minutes, all of a sudden I don't know if it's something to do with how the blood flows in your body. I've got no idea what the science or mechanics of it are, but it just seems to change your perspective from when you're sitting in and you might be on your phone, or, it can just, or you're sitting with your thoughts and you're really struggling, just going out for 10, 15 minute walk. If you can, just, I don't know what it is. It just seems to kind of get a certain part of the brain flowing that's more positive, that has a more positive outlook.
Yeah. I mean, I always talk, when I'm talking to students and to teams, I talk about how we are just animals at the end of the day. And our original design, if you like, was to roam, to hunt, to sleep, and I couldn't tell you if cavemen were happy or cavewomen were happy. Like, who knows? But what I do know is that when we see technology increase and we see our world get more and more complicated, we're seeing a rising epidemic of mental health issues. So obviously what we're doing currently isn't working. Perhaps it is time to get back to basics a little bit more, and things like walking does work. I've just found that Hemingway quote as well. It says, "There's nothing noble in being superior to your fellow men. True nobility lies in being superior to your former self."
I love that. Absolutely love that. Yeah. And yeah, it is, if you, just have a competition with yourself rather than anyone else. And I can tell you, firsthand, that I certainly was at 21 stone, the slowest man in there, but in that boxing gym. But you know what? That was the other nice thing, is just people have been so supportive. People have just been, just amazing towards me. And I've got so many people that I just love to, when I get to the end, but even not, to thank, and just because whether it's my wife encouraging me, family, friends. I had a good mate reach out to me, a good school friend, reach out to me on Sunday, and he texted me and he said, I've been following your progress and all of that, and I've just run a half marathon, so I'm hoping to join you on the day, and thanks for inspiring me. And that's really nice, because it doesn't just, it makes me feel, oh wow, I've inspired someone. That's brilliant. That's a really nice feeling to inspire someone. But then him actually sending that to me, was like, oh, that's really inspired me, and that's made me want to carry on and kind of share the journey a bit, just to show people that it is you're definitely capable of, if things just don't feel quite right at the moment, or you're a bit stuck, or you're having a really hard few months or whatever, stick in there, talk to people, you can turn it around. Don't give up.
It's amazing. What a great point to end on as well, Simon. I don't think we can top that, really. That's the positive reinforcement that we needed on it earlier during the week, I think.
Yeah.
And so when is your Ironman? What date is it?
Friday, the 25th of March. And the reason for it being on that day is that will be 25 years to the day that my mum died. So she died of breast cancer when I was 15, and I suppose I wanted to do it on that day just to show her that actually, despite some bumps in the road, things have turned out all right, and it's a bit of a celebration of her life. And I'm raising money for a charity called Alabaré, and they help homeless veterans and veterans who are struggling with mental health issues. It feels like a really worthwhile cause. We've got $5,000 in the bank already, so hopefully that will build towards the big day.
That's amazing. And if people wanted to donate to this, of course, if they're hearing this before you run, where could they go?
So it's on Just Giving, and it's / Martin Maguire Memorial Ironman is the link. And definitely, if they want to follow me on Instagram, it's at I've got my own Instagram, but I've got one just for this, which is my wife tells me off because it's too cheesy, but at Iron Mag MAG 2022.
Nice, thank you. Yeah. And we'll put a link in the description of the podcast as well, so that people can go and check it out.
Great, thanks, Chris, and thanks for having me today. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure meeting you, and thank you for sharing everything, sharing your life. It's I hope it helps other people.
Definitely.
Cheers, dude.
Cheers.
Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Burnt Chef Journal. If you haven't yet checked out the Burnt Chef Project website, then please head over to www.theburnchefproject.com. You'll find a whole host of resources, free access to our training app, as well as free support services, blog posts, our merchandise store, and also our ambassadors who are there to support you when you need it. Thanks again for joining us this week, and I'll see you again soon.